Something that I find fascinating about being autistic is special interests. I think that's fairly obvious. My entire first book was completely focused on my own interests, my own, really important hobbies that have carried me through my entire life. There's just something about that topic which really gets me. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about why there is one particular special interest that I believe is common enough to almost be a phenomenon in its own right. Before I get onto it, I do want to make the disclaimer that obviously I'm not suggesting that this particular special interest is universal, because there's no such thing as that. Special interests, an autistic person's favourite things and passions will be very, very different for everybody. It's just that this one just seems to pop up frequently. And one other disclaimer as well, just because I like to be, fully covered by these things. I'm aware that some people don't like the term special interest. I know that, and to those people I apologise, I suppose. But I like the term. I think the word special in this context is very, very useful, meaning, important, unusual, vital, awesome, those kind of connotations. So I tend to still use the term. But if you don't like it, then fair enough. I'm not going to argue otherwise about how you should use language. Anyway, on to what I actually want to talk about here. Lego. Okay, Lego. It is such a common denominator for so many autistic people that I want to just speculate a little, and this is just speculation. Please do not mistake this for hardcore research or anything that's, that you can, take to the bank. This is just me thinking out loud, really. But it's interesting to me, so I thought I'd share it. So what is it about Lego that tickles that itch, perhaps, that autistic people might have? What is it that makes it so, for want of a better term, autism friendly? Well, I don't know the answer to that, so I'm going to explore and buzz around a few possibilities. The first thing that I want to kind of fixate upon is the creativity aspect, because I think that's quite important. Obviously, it's a very, very, very creative toy. That's its entire reason of being. That's its entire purpose. And it's interesting to note that autistic people can indeed be very, very creative. Something that I think was lost in the past, something that was lost in the old stereotypes of all autistic people being mathematicians and scientists, who, in all fairness, in their own way, are obviously creative too. I mean, there's nothing more creative than science, really. But you get the idea. The point is that often the kind of creativity that we associate with, painting, drawing, writing, building models, that kind of thing, was often kind of ignored, but in the past. Now we're far more attuned to the fact that autistic people often have tremendously creative hobbies, and that a lot of autistic people work in the creative arts. So the creative aspect of Lego, I think, is crucial. The fact that obviously with the right parts and with a decent selection of pieces, you can build whatever you want. And linked with that is something else that's really interesting to me, which is world building. I've found that a lot of key autistic hobbies seem to revolve around this same idea of creating a world. Whether it's a Lego world, like my kind of main street here, little town centre there, or whether it's a miniature railway, a train set, as we call them in this country anyway, or a world on Minecraft, which I also do, of course. And to be fair, I'd have a train set if I could afford it and if I had the room for it. Without any shadow of a doubt, I'd be on that. Or even, creating worlds like fan fiction, or developing existing worlds in your own way that makes them more amenable for yourself. People do that with the Lord of the Rings universe and various other fictional universes. That's interesting too, isn't it? The autistic desire to possibly to create our own worlds. Is that an innate thing that autistic people just have as part of our psychological makeup, or is it a result of trauma? The world is not built, not designed, not set up in any way for autistic people. So we go off and we bloody build our own. It's like, screw you guys. I'm making my own world where I can relax and be happy. I mean, that was the motivation behind my Minecraft world. For 10 years, it was a place where I could feel safe when I didn't feel safe outside of it. So yeah, fascinating stuff. Maybe that's another aspect of Lego. But then you've got the sensory side of Lego too, which I think is quite interesting. Tactile-wise, in terms of touch, it's very uniform. Obviously, all the pieces are different. All the pieces that make up this car are different. But all of the pieces, save the tyres, have the same tactile quality to them, the same hardness, the same amount of give, the same weight kind of thing, the same kind of heft, which I think that uniformity is very reassuring. One reason why I've never got into more bespoke model making, I don't know, like building a model boat or something out of bits and glue and stuff like that, is because in a tactile sense, all those things feel very different. All those ingredients, all those pieces that you would use. And you've got the sensory unpleasantness of glue, which I'm really not a fan of. I don't like getting on my fingers. I don't like, in a weird way, interesting little aside about glue. I hate like wood glue, anything that's sticky like that. But when I used to build Warhammer models, I didn't mind super glue, because even though it glued your fingers together, it dried immediately. So it just left a kind of crust, which you could pick off, and that was actually quite stimmy and quite nice. But wood glue and stuff that takes a while, Pritt stick as well, I can't stand it. So Lego removes all of that. There's a tactile uniformity to it that I think makes an awful lot of sense. And even from a visual point of view, even though obviously it's very colourful, just taking the kind of different colours, which might be triggering. But for those of us who are sensory seeking, or for those times where we just feel sensory seeking, we just want colouring, we just want the level of detail, Lego's just, beyond belief. It's just amazing. And that demand for detail as well is something that I find to be quite a common thread for a lot of autistic people. There seems to be this thing of liking detail, liking things to be small and intricate and fascinating to look at, which I wonder might be a sensory seeking behaviour, because detail demands focus. And I suppose if we're monotropic, if we have that real intense focus on single things, then detail is going to feed that, isn't it? It's going to really satisfy that need, which, now I think about it, makes a lot of sense. And then you've got sets. Lego sets. As you can see, I have a lot of those. A lot of what I have on display are official Lego sets. I mean, I do build my own things. This train is my own creation. This big old tank engine, 262. Decent hefty tank engine from the 1930s, 40s. But a lot of my stuff is sets that you buy, and they come with instructions. And people get ever so funny about this. People who aren't into Lego get really cross about Lego instructions. They're like, oh, back in my day, Lego was just random and you just built whatever you wanted out of random simple bits. And it's like, okay, you grew up in the 1950s. Lego sets with instructions have been around pretty much for the whole time that Lego's been around. That's something that a lot of people aren't aware of and get quite surprised by. You could buy Lego sets with instructions back in the 70s and I think into the 60s. Yes, they've got more complicated. Yes, the number of pieces has increased. But in my opinion, all that does is increases the number of possibilities. You look at some of the creations that people make now. If you go on a Facebook group or something of people doing their my own creations or mocks, absolutely stunning stuff that you couldn't have done just with simple 2x4 blocks. There's a weird kind of elitism there. I like Lego sets and I like the instructions because Lego instructions are incredibly efficient and very, very well designed. And I think, again, that is something that really works for an autistic brain in many ways, for many people anyway, not everyone. There's something about following these really well-designed instructions and watching the set develop and develop and develop and kind of getting a sense of how it's designed, which certainly works for me. And I wonder again, could be a reason why Lego is such a popular choice. The other thing, of course, is it's targeted, it certainly used to be targeted at children. So, many autistic people grew up with it. And as I've noted before, one of the reasons why autistic people are often accused or seen in a bad way for having quite childlike interests is actually often because they just don't leave us. We have them from childhood, and they just don't leave us. They stay with us forever. We don't feel necessarily perhaps the social imperative to drop them. Having said that, of course, plenty of, childlike interests might develop later in life. And again, where's the harm? And again, there's not that social feeling of, I shouldn't be into this for some reason. So we just, certainly if left to it and left alone, we might be just quite happy to indulge in those interests. So yeah, I think it's really, really interesting. There probably are other reasons, and by all means, in the comments, just say, if there's anything else that you can think of about why Lego is popular. If you don't like Lego, then by all means tell me, but to be honest, I don't really, not being funny, but remember, I'm not saying that everyone likes Lego here. That's not what this is for. It's just a case that I've noticed that it's a common, very popular hobby for a lot of autistic and neurodivergent people. So there we go. So there we are. My thoughts on why Lego is a popular interest. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll probably do more random videos as and when I have the spoons and remember to, because I forget to all of the time, because I think I'm ADHD. So there we go. Bye-bye.